hello everyone, I'm Andras Rung and I'm from Ergomania Digital Product Design. We are a UX agency dealing with UX and service design. And we are dealing almost for 10 years with voice banking design as well. And recently we were working on KBC, Kate, and similar banking applications. So I will talk about a snippet of what David was already showing to us. So this is part of the future, or I hope that it's not that much future, but rather present for us. When we are talking about voice, many people are thinking about this, that it's a kind of nice to have thing, that yeah, it's interesting, let's play with technology, or maybe some young people, they need it, but it's not very important. And if you have seen the movie Her, that you were following, that the protagonist was fell in love with his digital assistant, and this is a promise that we will have soon this type of solutions what are very intelligent and serving us in everything, including finances. But so far it's not happening. I will talk about what are the necessary steps towards that, and I will show you some cases how to do it in a practical way, so not just like big picture that something good is coming, but actually what's happening. First of all, when we are talking about voice design, inclusivity is quite important. So there is like a group of users for whom this would be the #1 solution, or it would be like a nice extension for their banking experience. In Europe, it's not a big problem to deal with illiterate people, but worldwide there's more than 10% of them. Or if we are talking about immigrants, they might have difficulties writing and reading in the local language, and speaking is easier for them. There are children under 6, around 10% of the population, who are not writing and reading. So for them, if they want to buy some candy, they need some solutions, and voice obviously works better for them. There are people with disabilities, blind people, visually impaired people, people who have motoric problems, and they are also representing part of the population. And also there are people who are not very visible with their problems, who are having dyslexia, dysgraphia, and so on. So there is like around 10–20% of the population for whom voice solutions would be much easier than the current mobile banking solutions. So it's not like a small friction of the people. But when we are talking about that, there are groups, but for them it still would be useful. So there are people with busy hands, driving, cooking, having a shower, working on a different application. So if you are thinking about that somebody is dealing with an Excel sheet, can request what's the balance, what were the latest transactions, whatever. So you can extend your mobility. Like, it's very natural and quick. If you are thinking about that voice, like talking is 3 times faster than typing. So you can increase your productivity basically with voice. It can work in a passive way, so you can just basically listen to information. So meanwhile you are driving, you can get an update of your transactions, your balance. If there is a good group meeting about finances, you can interact in the group with the voice solution as well. So there are several cases when voice is simply more comfortable and easier. If you're just thinking about that, if you go to a restaurant, which one is more natural and comfortable? Talk with the waiter, or chatting with him about your order in WhatsApp. It's not very practical. It's much easier to talk. So in other cases, voice is a good solution. And there are cases when we might need it, location-based, that in a car, kitchen, but even you can get updates of your finances by having a shower. So there are several cases when it's a good extension, and basically you can deal with your finances in cases and situations when you were not dealing with that before. And when we are talking about that, whether it's a nice-to-have thing or it's part of the future, we have to address the business needs, or what kind of business cases supporting. The most popular, or one of the most popular case when banks are implementing voice solution is call center robotization. Basically with this you can decrease the cost in the beginning, these implementations are pretty expensive, so like the return on investment is not very quick, but afterwards you can use it, let's say, forever. And also it decreases employee churn. So for example, your call center colleagues are not dealing with very boring, very mundane tasks, and they can focus on sales or more complex support cases. You can address new audiences, as we were talking, that 10–15% of the population would be more accessible with voice, and plus you can motivate younger users, and also it's quite good for all users because they are using also voice solutions, just you are paying the employees who are talking with them. It can improve loyalty, engagement, and also you can get new customers on board with that. But when we are dealing with voice, there are a lot of challenges, so it's not very easy. So if you're thinking about the iPad, and there was before other solutions, other initiations to have a tablet, it's the same thing with voice, that there was a little bit over-promising, like 5–10 years ago. It will be very easy, chatbots can handle anything, and AI is here, so just you have to plug in a voice solution or chat solution and it will work. But it's not the case. Actually, there are a lot of problems and there are a lot of challenges regarding voice design. What doesn't mean that we should not work on it, but it means that we have to address these problems. So first of all, like AI is here, AI is coming, but until it takes several months to handle a change pin case in a banking voice solution, we cannot say that artificial intelligence handling everything very easily. Language processing is still an issue. Actually, linguists, they don't know how the language works. So you cannot just take their books and implement it, but there are a lot of ongoing debates how language works still. There are new theories, analogy, construction, grammar, and so on. And you have to take into account of this. And also what we see in banking voice projects that several times they don't even implement the tools what are existing. Language diversity is a big issue in Europe. So in US, it's easy to implement voice solution. You need English, maybe Spanish. If you want to be very professional, Chinese or Japanese, but that's all. In Europe, it's a much harder case. And it's not something that like you just have to use translation tools because you have to re-implement the conversation. So for example, if you have a Dutch solution and you want to serve, let's say, Spanish users as well, you have to rethink how conversation is happening in Spanish. And it's not the same, it's not just a translation. So for example, when we are talking about Kate in KBC, what is also a closer case, that like we talk differently in French and Dutch as well, so it's not an extraordinarily unusual case. There's a lot of variation in punctuation, pronunciation, how to detect the context, what we are using. So we have to cover these problems around the challenge, but there are also very practical problems that I was talking about that voice is quite fast, 3 times faster than typing. But because of connections and these solutions, they don't work offline most of the cases, it's slow. So we have to deconstruct these technical limitations to make it as fast, as quick as it works in reality. In most of the cases, in banking solutions, due to security reasons, it doesn't work without hand intervention. So you have to unlock your mobile banking solution, you have to tap on a stupid microphone icon, and so on and so on. And this makes this thing slow, and it doesn't, it's not very practical if you're thinking about that. You want to do a transaction, meanwhile you are driving, and you have to do all of these things, and it makes it slow. Social acceptance is very low at the moment, so when you are talking about that, oh, we will use voice banking, they are joking about that, oh, but who will use voice banking in a tram when everybody is hearing that I sent $5 to Joe, so it's kind of impossible thing. And they don't think about that before the social acceptance was different for other tools. So if you made the mobile call on a tram 20 years ago, they thought that you are crazy, and it's insane that everybody is listening to very private, very personal, very secretful conversations on the tram. So it's different, it's changing, but currently people, they are not that open for that. We lack best practices. So if you want to make a voice banking solution, it's not something that you go and you just copy Revolut screens and just alter a little bit and you have like an okay application at least, but it's very complex to repeat the already existing solution. So you really have to rebuild everything with hard work. And also, when people are dealing with voice solutions, they consider it as a technical problem. So they don't do proper research with the users, what they need, what kind of cases are important for them, and also they don't test these solutions quite well, because in some respect, voice projects are happening like standard web and software projects 20 years ago. So currently, mostly the technical people are interested about these solutions, and the projects are usually tech-driven at the moment and not driven by the user needs. And of course, there is a user side that people, they want more security, privacy, and so on around these solutions. To jump into concrete things, that if you want to have a voice project, you have to take into consideration that what are the necessary steps. How is it happening? Of course, this is very high level. So if you just understand these steps, you cannot run a voice project immediately, but you have to understand the big picture, how it's happening. So first of all, you really need research, what kind of use cases are interesting and necessary for people in voice banking. Like if you consider in banking solution, you can have minimum several hundred, sometimes thousands of cases. Usually when you start a voice banking project, you can cover 5, 10 cases in the beginning. So you really have to choose properly which cases are realistic and which cases are the most important. You have to define the personality of your bot. So it cannot be anything. You have to give a character to them, and it should be aligned with your brand as well. You have to define the cases, the intents, what the bot is covering based on your research, but also you have to take into consideration the business needs. So what will drive the most value for you? You have to collect an insane amount of training sentences for your AI, but it's not a very simple case because usually people from the business and technical side, they don't know how these people they speak. So you have to talk with banking employees from the branches. You have to listen to a lot of call center data, but you have to take into consideration that people, they talk differently with machines. So if you just try to implement those conversations, it won't work in the beginning. You have to create the flows for these conversations, so how they are happening, how they are connected. You have to do user testing, what is actually quite different, how user testing is happening with websites and applications, because usually in these tests, people, they talk about their things, their thoughts, and actually if you are testing a voice solution, the voice solution is implementing their feedback as an input. So it doesn't work very well, but there are methods for that. And what also people are forgetting regarding voice projects, so since it's an unusual new thing, you really have to put a lot of effort into activating your users and promoting the solution, because they don't know about the voice solutions, they don't know what to ask, and they are insecure about this. So sometimes it's happening that there was voice solutions actually at ING or in Central European OTP Bank as well. The users didn't know anything about that. They didn't recognize that there is a microphone there. Even the business owners didn't know that there is a voice solution in their own app. So you really have to put effort into that. Just some highlights about the problems, what I was describing. So for example, when you select the personality for your bot, who is your bot? The bot is your best friend, the bot is your spouse, the bot is your butler. It's important because the bot will communicate with you in that way. When you are collecting the data, you have to basically group it based on different kind of topics, use cases, and afterwards you can go down to the intents. And for example, here is a screenshot from the flow design. So when you are specifying different cases and different intents, you have to specify them in a flow chart in this way to go deeper. And when you are ready with this, you can implement it, for example, in your mobile bank. So there are several steps that how to do it, and you can follow the standard methods as well. So, for example, you can have also confirmation in payment flow. So it's not something that you say something accidentally and your money goes out. So you can follow the standard steps. And usually, I think it's the most important case in voice project to define the user needs and to define why it's good for the business. But of course, you have to take into account which technological partners you are using, because obviously you won't build a full AI solution, a full speech-to-text solution, not even talking about voice generation. And these are the most common providers what we have seen in different kind of voice projects. Google is the most popular for that reason, because it's very easy to experiment with them, very easy to try to have kind of proof of concept projects. And also they are covering a lot of European languages. The same true for Nuance, that there are usually older solutions are running on Nuance, but still there are some new initiatives. Alexa is less important, I think, in Europe because it's covering less languages. So if you are thinking about broader solutions, it's not necessarily your choice. But on the other hand, if you're just focusing on one country or one language, it's quite important to take into account local providers, because in several cases, they can train their tool more in the way as you like it. So focusing more on banking and increasing the understanding of the solutions. And just some highlights, like what's happening now in Europe and worldwide. I already mentioned KBC. You should be aware of Blue from BBVA. Erica and Fargo are also flagship projects for big American banks. And this is like just a screenshot from the Kate application, what you can try for yourself as well. As I mentioned, call center robotization, it's quite important. So there are some initiatives regarding that. Of course, there is much more. Then these are just some highlights. And so to sum it up, if you want to deal with voice banking, what is the value, how you can focus on that? One of them is that you can make your banking solution more intuitive, more natural with voice, because basically it's more natural for us to talk as well than typing, writing, or selecting from pictograms. You can address young and older generation easier as well, because for them, in several cases, it's more natural. You can be more inclusive for immigrants and foreigners, that in some cases it's easier for them to use voice solution. And you can cover basically banking solutions with people with different kind of disabilities. And so if you're focusing on that, you can have like a more inclusive and more natural banking solution. So these were all what I wanted to say for you about voice banking. If you want to learn more, I'm happy to talk with you in the break. And if you make a snapshot of this QR code, we have a voice banking white paper, so you can download it there. And that's it for today about voice banking. Thank you very much.